This is shampoo ginger for butterflies. It's the host plant for them to lay their eggs on. And since forever, I've wanted to grow my own butterfly farm. So last year, I waited out the summer for these pods to grow. And then I went on a little hunt to find them, bring them home, grow them, and attract butterflies to my garden so they'd find the host plant and lay their eggs. But there was just one problem: finding the butterflies. I needed to make sure they would find my milkweed host plants and live there long enough to mate and lay their eggs. And one day, I was talking with a friend of mine who is a kindergarten teacher, and she told me how her class was hatching butterflies. And that's the moment I knew that my plan was set and I was all in. I was gonna order 10 individual caterpillars and carefully raise them until they turned into butterflies, and then release them onto my milkweed host plant for the butterflies to mate, lay eggs, and live out their short 14-day lifespans till they inevitably reached the rainbow bridge. And 2 weeks later, I opened my front door to my most awaited package of the year. These 11 tiny little cups that held magical transformation inside. The first week with these caterpillars was crazy because they were so tiny. I was a little worried they wouldn't survive the journey from baby to adult. But I tried to trust the process and give them everything they needed to fully survive to the point where we could release them into nature as the awesome pollinators they are. The little containers came with lids that had an air hole for proper circulation, a tissue paper liner in place for them to hang from using webs they create through special glands in their head, and enough food for them to grow all the way to the chrysalis stage. The food was the yellow part at the bottom of the cups. So as I learned more about these tiny creatures, time started to pass and we were already at day 14. As the caterpillars consumed the food, they produced yellow brownie balls called frass. And every 3 days I would use this paintbrush to delicately clean out the loose webbing and frass. Soon, it had been 21 days already, and they were getting so much bigger so quickly. And one day, I was doing my regular cleaning when I noticed that one looked different. And when I saw this red dot, I knew that everything was about to change. When the caterpillars generate a small red ball, that means they're done consuming their diet and ready to pupate. I opened this one and it also had a red ball, and this one, and then this one. So I placed the 4 of them into a new home, and little did I know that magic was about to take place before my very eyes. Luckily, that very same evening, I sat there and witnessed 3 caterpillars transform into a chrysalis, which is the stage right before they hatch into butterflies. You could see each tiny creature slowly shed away a layer of skin and morph into a tiny vampire-looking thing. And as amazing as this was, I knew the same thing was about to happen with the other 7 caterpillars, so I began to prepare myself for this exciting time in my life. It takes about 10 days for the butterflies to hatch from the chrysalis stage, and once they do hatch, they go through some insane changes that you're about to witness. I decided that I would rehouse the other 7 caterpillars to give them a better space than that tiny little cup to morph into a chrysalis. And in that moment, I guess I realized that I was running a full-blown butterfly maternity ward, and in just 10 days, I would be hosting a winged graduation ceremony with my own homegrown milkweed plants too. So, when I moved the other 7 to this new home, I didn't think they would move much, but I soon noticed that they were very active, crawling around all night, pooping, eating, and 24 hours later, they started spinning webbing that I soon learned they would use to anchor themselves onto once they turned into this, a chrysalis. Slowly but surely, they all started shedding their skin, and soon we had 7 chrysalides ready for their metamorphosis. And in this moment, I decided they needed a better place to hatch, for sure. So I removed the saran wrap with air holes and examined what we were working with. It was so insane how well the chrysalis stuck itself onto the webbing, and even more beautiful to be able to hold these in my hands, knowing what was about to come next. Because just like that, we now had 11 of them, and every single one had morphed into the stage right before hatching. So I got some netting, a 10-gallon tank, and got ready to make their final home so they could hatch. Even though I was kind of worried about moving them in case they fell from the webbing, I was surprised to see just how strong they were secured to the webs. I started moving them carefully one by one into their new home and attached them onto the netting in the new tank. Luckily, these came out as a quad all together, but one by one, I moved them into their new home, and soon my tank looked a little something like this. And I was so excited because these butterflies are pollinators and they help ecosystems thrive. So getting to release them was really exciting to me. And after waiting 31 days, day 32 finally came around and I finally got a notification on my phone to some movement in the tank. I ran over to see what was happening, and just like that, one of the chrysalises had split open and a painted lady butterfly emerged. Right when it hatched, her wings were crumpled and it was all happening so fast. I tried to place her on the snake plant, but she didn't want to go on it. So I gave her another option and gently tried placing her on my oxalis plant to grow her wings, which she accepted and crawled onto the little stem, and she stayed there for a long 2 hours, moving very slightly every few minutes, growing her wings until she finally released a red substance called meconium. I'm sure you can guess how freaked out I was that my butterfly started bleeding. But luckily I was learning so much about this species, and I knew that although it might look like blood, it wasn't blood at all. It's actually totally normal and not harmful. It just means the butterfly has completed its metamorphosis. And after 130 long minutes, she started crawling up the plant and opening up her wings a bit more. So in that moment, I decided to extend my finger and wait until she climbed right onto me and she started to fully expand her wings even more. I can't tell you how amazing the feeling of holding a newly hatched butterfly flapping its wings on your finger is, especially getting ready for flight. It felt like a miracle. I finally got to see what her wings actually looked like fully expanded, and right on my finger. She crawled up my arm and on my hands, and I gotta admit, we got a little close and personal. I realized that I have a new little hobby, placing insects on my face. After a while, I tried putting her back on the plant, but she didn't want to go, and I kid you not, for that entire day, like a Disney movie, she stayed on my hand as we waited for her little siblings to hatch. I knew we would have to release her soon. In the wild, painted lady butterflies have a short lifespan of approximately 2 weeks, so as long as the weather was okay, I was gonna release her. And just before I was about to, I got a live motion detection alert and ran to see a second butterfly emerging from its cocoon. And soon, I was a mother of 2. I wasn't sure when all the others would hatch, so I decided that the time finally came to release the first 2. But my milkweed wasn't quite ready yet for them. It was still growing and it didn't have the pods on it yet. So I placed them into this little container and started walking on the journey to release them. I had the perfect place to take them. This amazing spot with lots of flowers with nectar they can feed on. I gently opened up the container, extended my finger. The first one climbed on and I placed her right on the flower. Immediately, she started feeding on the nectar. And then I placed the second one onto the flower beside her, and I watched as they extended their mouth parts and began feeding. And as sad as I was to say goodbye, I knew I was still in my Disney princess era for at least a little longer because it wasn't over yet. As soon as I arrived home, I realized that a lot happened while I was gone. 4 more butterfly hatched, and the 5 other chrysalises were dark purple. And the next day, 2 more hatched. And just like that, I was a mother of 7. Or was it 8? I was starting to lose track. And they all started to grow their wings, release the red meconium, and they too were ready for release. And to think just 21 days ago, these were just little balls in a cup. What a few weeks it had been, and trust me, I walked around with these things on my face for what felt like all day, and it was the best feeling in the world. Butterflies are delicate creatures, so being able to be up close and personal with them felt like a fever dream that I never wanted to end. One by one, they finally got to the stage where they were ready to find flowers to feed on. And here's where I was a bit disappointed because I got the host plant for them to lay their eggs on so they could stay with me for generations to come. But I guess that wasn't really gonna work out here because my milkweed plant ended up getting an infestation of aphids that I treated, of course, don't worry, but it was gonna take too long to get the plant back to working order. So I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to release them onto my milkweed plant, but onto a plant in my favorite park with the best nectar flowers ever was a second close best. So I took them, placed them into this temporary home, went to my favorite park, found a nice place with lots of flowers and opened up the little container, let one climb onto my finger, placed it onto the tree, and the other one flew away into the summer sun to live out their short yet beautiful lives. I said my final goodbye and went home to wait for the last 3 butterflies to hatch, in awe that in just 3 weeks, these tiny creatures could morph and grow into something so beautiful. And as I suspected, the next day, we had 2 more that hatched, and they hatched just in time for my niece's 3rd birthday party. So I brought them to her party to release them, and let me tell you, I have never seen 3-year-old children sitting so still and quietly. They were absolutely in awe with the release of these butterflies. It was amazing. And when I got home, there were 2 more chrysalises that were dark purple. But when another week passed and they didn't hatch, and then a second week, I was worried about them. And I decided to take them into my hands to see if we had any movement in the chrysalis. And when they didn't move at all, I tried opening them with my hands to see if they just needed a little help. But unfortunately, 2 of our butterflies did not survive the metamorphosis from caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly. And that's okay, because nature took its course on these 2, and sometimes that happens where they just don't hatch. But the 9 that we did get to hatch were absolutely incredible. And when that summer was over, I went on my summer hunt and gathered all these milkweed pods, because around the end of the summer is when these grow in abundance and they all start falling off and blowing their seeds in the wind. Milkweed has actually been disappearing for over the past decade, so the butterfly population as a result is declining. But we can reverse this by planting milkweed in our home gardens for the butterflies. So I collected them, brought them home, extracted all the seeds, removed the yarn-like material, and saved the seeds to grow that I planted the following year. And that plant is now doing really well. And by the way, at one point in time, these milkweed pods were used for old mattress and pillow fillings, and they were even used to fill some flotation devices during World War II. So when I noticed how cool this material was, I tried to knit it into some sort of yarn, but I feel like I needed to mix it with another material in order for it to actually be sewable. And now that my milkweed is growing really nicely without aphids, all I have to do is wait for the pods to grow on my plant so that I can release more butterflies in my own garden. But the moral of the story here is that becoming a Disney princess is totally worth it.
Hi, Blanket, I love you!